Chapter 17 of Lotus Buds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Paula Priebe, Wausau, Wisconsin. Lotus Buds by Amy Wilson CARMICHAEL. Chapter 17. In the Compound and Near It. Now I know why God put you in Dohnavur when he wanted this work done. He hid you from the eyes of the world for the little children's sake. He knew this work could never be done by the roadside, so he hid you. The speaker was a Christian friend from Palmcotta, an Indian lawyer who, for the first time, had come out to see us. He had found our approaches appalling, and had wondered at first why we lived in such an out-of-the-way place, 3 or 4 miles from the nearest road, and 24 from civilization. When he saw the children, he understood. Later, he helped us in an attempt to save 2 little ones in danger, and insisted not only upon paying his own and our workers' expenses, but in sending us a gift for the nurseries. With the gift came a letter full of loving Indian sympathy, and again he added, as before, "The Lord hid you in that quiet place for the little children's sake." Sometimes, when the inconveniences of jungle life press upon us, we remember our friend's words. This work could never be done by the roadside, so he hid you. We have little children with us who would not have been safe for a day had we lived near a large town or near a railway. The stretch of open country between us and Palmcotta, the Church Missionary Society centre of the Tinnevelly district, to cover which by bullock cart takes as long as to travel from London to Brussels, is not considered very safe for solitary Indian travellers, as the robber clan frequent it, and this is an added protection for the children. Several times, to our knowledge, unwelcome visitors have been deterred from making a raid upon us by the rumour of the robbers on the road. We are also most mercifully quite out of the beat of the ordinary exploiter of missions. Few except the really keen care for such a journey, so that we get on with our work uninterrupted by anything but the occasional arrival of welcome friends and comrades. These, when they visit us for the first time, are usually much astonished to find something almost civilized out in the wilds, and they walk around with an air of surprise and quite inspiring appreciation, being kindly pleased with little because they had looked for less. The compound in which the nurseries are built is a field, bounded on 3 sides by fields, and on the 4th by the bungalow compound. The western Ghauts with their foothills make it a beautiful place. The buildings are not beautiful. With us, as elsewhere doubtless, even the break of a gable in the straight, barn-like roof makes a difference in the estimate, and we have never had a margin for luxuries. But the walls are coloured a soft terracotta, the roofs are a dull red, while the porches, hidden by the palm trunks in the photograph, are a mass of greenery and bloom, and the garden at the moment of writing is rejoicing in over 100 lilies, brilliant yellow and flame colour, each head with its many flowers rising separate and radiant in the sunshine. Then we have oleanders, crimson and pink and white, and little young hibiscus trees, crimson and rose and cream. The arches in the new nursery garden are covered with the lilac of morning glory, and the prayer room in the middle of the garden is a mass of violet passion flower, the pretty pink Antigone, and starry jessamine. The very hedges at this season are out in yellow flower, and a trellis around the nursery garden is a delight of colour. So though our buildings are simple, we think the lines have fallen unto us in pleasant places. The first picture shows the old nursery, used now for the kindergarten. It opens off the courtyard shown in the second photo. This courtyard serves as an open-air room, a bright little place which is filled with merrier children than the sombre photograph shows. Tamils, old and young, move when they laugh or even smile. In fact, they wriggle. Being still, with them, meant being seriously subdued, and so, where time exposures were required, we had to choose between solemn photos or no photos at all. Opening off the courtyard on the opposite side to the kindergarten is a room used as a storeroom and Bible classroom combined. It was so very uncomfortable that last Christmas, as a surprise for the children, we divided the room into 2 halves, with a curtain between. Their half is made pretty with pictures and texts, painted in blue on pale brown wood. The children call this part of the room the tabernacle. The part beyond the curtain is the court of the Gentiles. The coming day feasts are a feature of Dohnavur life. Now that there are so many feasts to celebrate, we find it more convenient to combine, and the photograph overleaf shows as much as it can for one such happy feast. The children who are being feted are distinguished from the others by having flowers in their hair. No Indian feast is complete without flowers. Jessamine is the favourite, but the prettiest wreaths are made of pink oleander, and sometimes a girl will surprise us with a new and lovely combination, as of brown flowering grasses and yellow Tacoma bells. Opposite the kindergarten room is the first of the two nurseries, the lively Parrot House. This nursery, really the Taraha, Star, called after its English giver, whose name means star, is the abode of the middle-aged babies, aged between 2 years and 4. Most of these attend the kindergarten and are very proud of the fact. The Pramalia Nursery, Abode of Love, given by 2 friends in memory of a mother translated, lies beyond the Taraha. Here the tiny infants live, and we call it the Menagerie. This nursery, like the other, looks out on the glorious mountains. If beautiful things can make babies good, ours should be very good. On the eastern side of the field we have lately built 2 small sick rooms, used oftener as overflow nurseries. These little rooms have names meaning peace and tranquility, and those of us who have lived in them with our babies, sick or well, find the names appropriate. In the foreground there is a garden, in the background the mountain, and, to give purpose to it all, the foreground is full of life. A new nursery now being built is a welcome gift from Australia, and a new field with a noble tree, in whose shade 100 children could play, is the gift of a friend who stayed with us for 1 bright week last year. All this is a later development, unthought when our artist friend was with us. We have often wished for him since the nurseries filled. When he was with us our choice of subject was very limited. Now, wherever we look we see pictures, which, to be properly caught, ask for color photography. The story of these buildings is the story of the Ravens, so old and yet so new. When first the work began, we had only 1 mud-floored room for nursery, kitchen, bedroom, and everything else that was needed. We hardly knew ourselves whereunto things would grow, and feared to run before the Lord by even a prayer for buildings. And yet we could not go on as we were. The birds were soon too many for the nest, and we needed more nests. No one knew of our need, for visitors at that time were few at Dohnavur, and we told no one. But money began to come. We ventured on a single room without a veranda or even foundations, built of sun-dried bricks as inexpensively as possible, but it was a palace to us. While we were building it, more little children came. We felt we should need more room, but we had not more money, so we told the builders to wait for a day while we gave ourselves to prayer about the matter. Was the work going to grow much more? We were fearful of making mistakes. Were we right to incur fresh responsibility? For buildings need to be kept in condition, and the cheaper they are, the more care they need. No one at home was responsible for us. No one had authorized this new work. It would not be fair to saddle those on whom the burden might eventually fall with responsibilities for which they were not responsible. And yet surely the work of saving these little children had been given to us to do. Someone was responsible. Surely, unless we were utterly wrong and had mistaken the shepherd's voice, surely he was responsible. He could not mean us to search for the lambs for whom only the wolves had been searching, and then leave them out in the open, found but unfolded, or packed so close in the little fold that they could not grow as little lambs should? We rolled the burden off that day as to the ultimate responsibility, and we asked definitely for all that was needed to build another room. 3 days later, a registered letter came from a bank in Madras. It contained an anonymous gift of 100 rupees and was marked for a new nursery. The date showed that it had been posted in Madras on the day of our waiting upon the Lord for guidance as to his wishes. A few days later the same amount with the same direction as to its use was sent to us from the same bank. The giver, as we knew long afterwards, was a fellow missionary in Tinnevelly, whose order to send these sums to us was given before even we ourselves had fully understood the meaning of the leading. The second room was built on to the first, and the children called it the Room of Joy. There are no secrets in India. The Hindu masons were amazed at what they at once recognized as the hand of the Lord upon the work, and they spread the story everywhere. Later, when they built the nursery where poor little Mala stood and mourned, they understood why they had to stop before the veranda was built. Only enough was in hand to build the bare room, but to their eyes, as to ours, a veranda was much needed, and they were content to wait till what was required for one came. In this land of blazing sunshine and drenching monsoon, a house without a veranda is hardly habitable, and a small square room without one has a Manx cat appearance. The story of the rooms has been repeated in the story of the work ever since. "Do not thank us, it is only a belated 10th," wrote a fellow missionary not long ago, as she sent a gift for the nurseries. Belated 10ths have reached us sometimes when they have been like visible ravens flying straight from the blue above. All the long journeys in search of the children, all the expenses connected with their salvation, all that has been required to provide nurses and food, including the special nourishment without which the more delicate could not live at all that is now being needed for their education, all has come and is coming as the ravens came to Elijah. The work has been a revelation of how many hearts are sensitive and obedient to the touch of the Spirit, for sometimes help has reached us in such a way and in such a form that we could not but stand and worship, awestruck by the token of the nearness of our God. There is many a spot marked in garden or in field or in the busy nursery or our own quiet room, where, with an open letter in our hand, the letter of relief from a pressure unknown even to the nearest fellow worker, we have knelt in spirit with Jacob and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place," and almost added, so dense are we in unilluminated moments, "and I knew it not." Framed between red roofs and foliage, there are far blue glimpses of mountains shown in this lakeside photograph. We do not see the water from the compound. It lies on the other side of the boundary fields and hedges, but we see the mountains with perfect distinctness of outline, scarped with bare crags, which in the early morning are sometimes pink, and in the evening purple. But the time to see the mountains in their glory is when the southwest monsoon is flinging its masses of cloud across to us. Then the mountains, waking from the lazy sleep of the long hot months, catch the clouds on their pointed fangs, toss them back and harry them, wrap themselves up in robes of them, and go to sleep in them. The road that skirts the Red Lake leads through two ancient Hindu towns, from both of which we have children saved, in each case as by a miracle. In the first of these old towns there is a temple surrounded by a mighty wall. There are two large gates and one small side door in the wall, and, passing in through the small side door, one sees another wall, almost as strong as the first, and realizes something of the power that built it. The temple is in the center of the large enclosure. It is a single tower opening off the inner court. In the outer court, a pillared hall is used as a stable for the temple elephant, and two camels lounge in the roughly kept garden in front. This temple, with its double walls, its massive, splendidly carved doors and expensive animal life, is somewhat of a surprise to the visitor, who hardly expects to see so much in a little old country town on the border of the wilds. But Hinduism has not lost hold of this old remote India yet. There are some who think that the country town is the place to see it in strength. It was early in August 3 years ago that we heard of a baby girl in that town, devoted from birth to the god. We set wheels in motion and waited. A month passed and nothing was done. We could not go ourselves and attempt to persuade the mother to change the vow she had made, as any movement on our part would only have riveted the links that fettered the child to the god. We had to be quiet and wait. At last, one evening in September, a Hindu arrived in the town, with whom our friends who were on the watch had intimate connection. He too knew about the child, and he knew a way unknown to our friends by which the mother might be influenced, and he consented to try. His arrival at that juncture appeared to us, who were waiting in daily expectation for an answer of deliverance, as the evident beginning of that answer. Thus our faith was quickened, and we waited in keen hope. 2 days later, after dark, there was a rush from the nursery to the bungalow. "The baby has come!" Another moment and we were in the nursery. A woman, one of our friends, was standing with what looked like a parcel wrapped in a cloth hidden under her arm. Even then, though all was safe, she was trembling. And outside, 2 men, her relations, stood on guard. She opened the white cloth, and inside was the baby. The men assured us that all was right. The mother had been convinced of the wrongness of dedicating the little babe, and would give us no trouble. But a day or 2 later she came and demanded it back. She could not stand the derision of her friends, who told her she had sinned far more in giving the child to those who would break its caste than she ever could have done by giving it to the temple. We pacified her with difficulty, and were thankful when the little thing was safe in the Nayor nursery. For in those days, before we learned how to best protect our children, we were often glad to have a safe place even more out of reach than Dohnavur. The second of these old towns is famous for its rock, and its temple built into the rock. Looking down from above, one can see inside the courtyard as into an open well. Connected with this temple, some years ago, there was a beautiful young temple woman who had been given as a child, as all temple women must be, to the service of the gods. She had no choice as regarded herself. Probably the idea of choice never entered her mind, but for her babe she determined to choose, and she knew of no way of deliverance. But there was a way of deliverance, and if it had only been for this one child's sake, and for the sake of the relief it must have been to that fear-haunted mother, we are glad, with a gladness too deep for words, that the nursery was here. For the mother heard of it. There were lions in the path. She quietly avoided them, and through others who were willing to help, she sent her child to us. She herself would not come. She waited a mile or so from the bungalow till the matter was concluded, then returned to her home alone. A week later she appeared suddenly at the bungalow. It was only to make sure the little one was safe and well, and in order to sign a paper saying she was wholly given to us. This done, she disappeared again, refusing speech with anyone, and for months we heard nothing of her. Then cholera swept our countryside, and we heard that she had taken it and died. We leave her to God her Creator, who alone knows all the story of her life. We only know enough to make us very silent. And through the quiet we hear it as were a voice that chants a fragment from an old hymn. We believe that thou shalt come to be our judge. End of chapter 17.